After a disappointing result at the Australian Grand Prix, Ferrari is determined to bounce back at the Chinese GP with a series of strategic and technical changes that should improve their performance. Lewis Hamilton, who has just joined the Maranello team, has begun to analyze the various obstacles that hinder the SF-25 and is ready to adapt to the new challenge in Shanghai. Can Ferrari make significant improvements and return to the front of the pack? Let's discuss. The Australian Grand Prix was a heavy blow for Ferrari, who arrived with high hopes but had to accept the bitter reality of an immature strategy. The team's main problems were not only related to the speed of the car, but also to how they reacted to the rapidly changing dynamics of the race. Mistakes in strategic decision-making, lack of effective communication between race engineers and drivers, and inability to adapt to constantly changing track conditions were the main factors that led to the disappointing results. The SF-25 cars driven by Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton showed weaknesses in adapting quickly to extreme changes in track conditions. Since the free practice session, there were already signs of difficulties, especially in terms of tire degradation and car balance in different types of corners. The problem was exacerbated when the race was held in unpredictable weather conditions. One of the biggest obstacles Ferrari faced in Melbourne was misreading the weather conditions. As rain began to fall on parts of the track, the team was unable to provide accurate and consistent information to its drivers. Hamilton, working closely with his engineer Riccardo Adami, received several out-of-sync instructions on when to pit and what type of tires to use. This resulted in a waste of valuable time and put them at a disadvantage to rival teams who were more responsive to changing track conditions. In addition, Ferrari's pit stop strategy was not flexible enough. Some of their decisions actually cost drivers positions on the track, especially when they delayed tire changes as the rain began to ease. This situation was reminiscent of the mistakes they had made in several races last season, where their lack of accuracy in reading the race had cost them great opportunities to achieve a podium or even a win. With a result that was far from what was expected in Melbourne, Ferrari must immediately carry out a thorough evaluation before the Shanghai Grand Prix. The Chinese circuit has different characteristics, with a longer track and more overtaking opportunities. They will have to ensure that the race strategy is better planned, the communication between the team and the drivers is more effective, and the car is better prepared for different weather conditions. If Ferrari are to stay in the title race this season, they must learn from their failure in Melbourne and ensure that similar mistakes are not repeated at the next race. Every detail of the strategy must be carefully considered so that the team can maximize its potential and deliver better results in the upcoming series. Ferrari is optimistic that the Chinese Grand Prix will be a turning point for the team after the unsatisfactory result in Melbourne. The Shanghai circuit has different characteristics, with a track that demands optimal aerodynamic balance and tire durability. Unlike Melbourne, which tends to be more bumpy and has significant temperature fluctuations, the weather conditions in Shanghai are more stable, giving the team the opportunity to develop a more consistent and competitive car setup. One of the main concerns for Ferrari is the less than optimal car setup in Melbourne. Charles Leclerc showed an improved performance in the second free practice session, but a mistake in the car setup strategy caused his performance to drop in qualifying. This shows that Ferrari still have some homework to do to find the right balance between aerodynamic efficiency and tire management. If they can overcome this problem, the possibility of a better performance in the Chinese GP is increasingly open. In addition, Ferrari now has to contend not only with the dominance of Red Bull, but also with the threat of McLaren. Before the season started, Ferrari were predicted to be Red Bull's main rivals, but the results in Melbourne proved that McLaren were more competitive. The competition is getting tighter and Ferrari must immediately find a solution to increase their competitiveness on the track. Lewis Hamilton admits that the SF-25 car has great potential, but he has not been able to get the most out of it. Although the car has several technical advantages, Hamilton is still struggling to adapt his driving style to the characteristics of a car that is so different to those he has used before. One of the main challenges is to find the right balance in the car's settings so that he can feel more confident, especially in high-speed corners. During practice in Melbourne, Hamilton began to see improvements in terms of comfort and adaptation to the SF-25. However, once the race started, things did not go according to plan. Problems with the car's setup and a lack of confidence in some areas of the track made it difficult for him to maintain optimum performance throughout the race. The result was less than satisfactory and prompted the Ferrari team to conduct a thorough evaluation. For the Chinese GP, Hamilton and his team of engineers will be making major adjustments to the car's setup. They will work in greater detail to understand how the car reacts to various setup changes, including aerodynamics and suspension systems, in order to improve stability and overall performance. The communication aspect is also a major concern. Ferrari is working to improve coordination between Hamilton and strategy engineer Riccardo Adami to ensure there are no miscommunications that could affect their race strategy. Miscommunication like what happened in Melbourne must not be repeated, as every tactical decision can have a big impact on the final outcome of the race. Hamilton knows that adapting to the SF-25 is not an instant process. However, with solid teamwork and a more strategic approach to practice and races, he is optimistic that he can quickly find his best rhythm and return to the front of the pack. One factor that has the potential to affect Ferrari's performance at the Chinese Grand Prix is the change in FIA regulations regarding the use of the drag reduction system, DRS. This new regulation will be implemented in Shanghai and changes the rear wing gap limit from the previous 2 mm to just 0.5 mm, with a temporary tolerance of 0.25 mm. This change can have a significant impact on the car's performance, particularly in terms of aerodynamic efficiency and straight-line speed. With a smaller gap, the drag reduction effect of DRS is reduced, meaning that teams that rely heavily on the system to increase top speed could see a drop in performance. According to analysis by the Red Bull team, Ferrari and McLaren are the two teams expected to be most affected by this rule change. Both teams are known to have aerodynamic designs that rely heavily on the effectiveness of DRS to increase speed on the straights, especially in race conditions where this system is used for overtaking. Ferrari, who are trying to catch up with Red Bull for the championship title, will have to adapt to this new regulation immediately. They may have to adjust the car's aerodynamic settings to remain competitive, both in qualifying and during the race. In addition, the team's engineers will have to find other technical solutions to maximize the car's efficiency without relying too heavily on DRS. Meanwhile, the impact of this regulation on the other teams will have to be seen. Red Bull, which has a car with higher aerodynamic efficiency, may not be affected too much. However, for Ferrari and McLaren, this regulation could be a big challenge that will require them to find new strategies to remain competitive in the Chinese GP and subsequent races. The Chinese GP is a crucial moment for Ferrari to make up for the mistakes they made in Australia and to show once again that they are a top team. With a track more suited to the SF-25 strengths and more stable weather conditions, the Italian team has a great chance of achieving better results than in the previous race. In order to compete with its rivals, Ferrari must focus on several important aspects. More solid communication between the team and the drivers will be key to developing an effective race strategy. In addition, the car settings must be optimized to suit the characteristics of the Shanghai circuit, allowing the drivers to maximize their performance. If Ferrari can overcome its weaknesses and execute its strategy well, the chances of returning to winning ways are wide open. This is also a golden opportunity for them to close the points gap with their main rivals in the standings, while proving that they are still serious contenders for the 2025 title. Can Ferrari make a comeback and prove their strength at the Chinese GP? Share your thoughts.